Before we go any further into it, number one, I didn't do it. We got a knock on the door from HMRC, FBI, and various people branding guns. When you deal with HMRC, you have to prove your innocence. I couldn't prove my innocence. I put my hand up. I had to do a deal so I didn't go to prison.
Adrian, welcome to the Loft.
Thank you.
For the benefit of anybody who's never heard of Adrian, met Adrian, tractor pulling mad, tractor mad, successful business owner, and just most enthusiastic person I have ever met in my life.
Thank you. Yes. Tractor mad is me and has been from day one. As you know, On the Pull gave me another lease of life. Let's
start at the start. Where did the love of tractors come from? Is this a childhood thing or what?
Yeah, so my family have been farming for 16 or 17 generations throughout the Tugwell family, and my mother's family they came out of Galway in the late 1800s, went to Wiltshire. They were farming in Wiltshire and in Ireland. Father's maternal grandparents had a farm in the next county up. World War II happened. Father got sent to the farm at the age of 6 to help with the farm. Grandmother had evacuees. He spent his whole war years on the farm, started ploughing with 2 horses. First tractor, 1943, standard Fordson, and on it goes from there. Previously, it was, you guys have come and spoke to Father. The whole thing's documented, which is great. Father joined the RAF, flew planes, came out the RAF, missed farming, started up contracting in 1958. Mm-hmm. I came along in 1970, and from day one, I've just had this unbelievable fascination with tractors. Just everything has been tractors. And I've just never grown out of it. It's just got stronger and stronger. And here we are today with the ability and the means to collect a few. And it's almost like an addiction. And the fun and the enjoyment I get out of them. I've never grown tired of it. And it's probably from the age of 2 or 3. And here I am at 56 and still the addiction is getting stronger with it.
Well, you make it sound so simple. It's like you had a period where you started with the farming and you're back to collecting tractors, but it's not to say you're a full-blown contractor with a fleet of tractors cutting silage and whatever now.
No.
Where did we start and when did that change?
So contracting, again, from the 50s right through, baling, silaging, arable works, combining, you name it. I got sent away to school, which wasn't very good because I'm not academic in any way, shape or form. Still a really poor reader, if a reader at all. I managed to fail all my exams in boarding school, so I got released at the age of 13, joined the local school, spent more time away from school working with Father, driving tractors. In those days, you could probably get away with far more than you can now. Father always told me if I wore a big coat, as long as I could reach the pedals, I could drive a tractor on the road. So the age of 11 onwards, it started. Came into the local, finished boarding school at 13, 1983, did my first proper season in the family business, baling with an old Ford 6600 and New Holland 376 baler. Still got the tractor today, still in the back of the shed. Anyway, Father, I just worked alongside with Father, many arguments, many bits. I had my ideas, Father had his ideas. Father's very good, let me develop the business. Very good, contracting was good.
What was his philosophy? What was his style of management? Was he just happy doing whatever work came in the door? Was he pushing? What way was he training you up?
My father's training was you start at the bottom and you work your way up, which I did. I can remember my winters were spent, we sold a lot of firewood back in those days. My winters were spent, before I had a car license, splitting firewood day in, day out. And that's what happened. Father made me start right at the bottom. And 1986, I joined a YTS scheme at £27 a week. And I was doing 100 hours a week then. And I always remember Mother making my father make the money up because he wanted to pay me £27 a week. Not that he was tight, but father was brought up hard and he wanted me to have the same upbringing. And if I'm honest, now looking back, I do appreciate the fact that he was very hard on me like that. It's given me the unbelievable drive to go forward with stuff. Father's business ethos, father came out of a different generation. He was very safe. He didn't risk anything. He didn't borrow any money.
It was a different time, though.
Yeah, of course it was,
It was a very different time economically. There was no internet. There wasn't the same kind of opportunities. You kind of had to work within the bubble of your local area.
Very much. And that doesn't mean I'm disrespecting my father. I'm very, very grateful for where my father put me in life. But I came out with different ideas. We were doing arable contracts. We were doing combining bits and pieces. I steadily progressed. Started ploughing at 16. I did all our ploughing, then I started on to drilling. We were foraging bits and pieces, just general contracting. About our area in England, the Cotswolds, it was predominantly sheep. It's big arable estates now. There's not many dairy cows, but back in those days, the milk price was still good and there was enough to do. Mm-hmm. Very quickly learnt we needed to look at other opportunities, diggers, construction. Got to the early 90s, it was agreed with father I would have a couple of years working away for another company. A friend of ours, it's own a big construction company and a farm, so I could learn a little bit of both. So I went off, learned to drive diggers, learned a lot about construction, bits and pieces and how to work things.
When you say learned, I can see how that works hand in glove. Rather than going out there and just going, we're going to buy a digger and we're going to find out what happens. You went and saw how somebody else is doing it. But did you only get just in a seat and sort of see what you see, or were you sort of getting more into this is how a building site works, this is how a contract works? Where did that come from in terms of the business side of things?
It was more practically. I don't know. Again, as I've said earlier, I'm not an academic man by any means, but I am very practical and have a lot of common sense. So being involved in it, you learn, I'm of the view that you learn more doing something and how to do it and manage it as you're doing it than going to college. Mm-hmm. That's just my view. Doesn't mean it's right, but it works. Everyone has different ways of learning, don't they? And that was my way of learning.
Yeah.
And the man I work for, Alan Smith, and a good shout out to him, he taught me a lot. Very, very good man. Very, very good memories of hauling silage with a Leyland 272 with no brakes or lights. And it was good fun days, no pressure or anything. Unfortunately, about a year into my time away, mother got diagnosed with cancer. Given 6 months to live, mother died. And at that point, father had said, right, time, you come home. And he said, I need to take a back seat. So probably, I think I went back home fully in about 92, 93. Father just made me a partner in the business and said, there you go.
How old were you when your mother died?
24.
Well, how did that impact your life and your father's relationship?
As far as impact on my life, it's something I probably miss my mum all day, every day. I can actually feel myself welling up a little bit now. My mother looked after us, really looked after us. And I guess that you don't really get to know your parents properly until you're in your 20s. You're not old enough to know them. And I kind of miss that. And I think to start with, it gave me my father and I clashed quite badly on a lot of things. Fathers and son working together. And I guess that having that emotional loss gives you more fight against things, doesn't it? Anyway, it took me a couple of years to actually get my head around it enough to go forward. And I would say it's still a big impact on my life today, losing my mother at a young age. It would still now at my age get me tearful when I think about it. And again, I'm choking up a little bit talking about it. 30 years on, I've kind of learned to live with it.
What was she like? What way did she raise you as opposed to the way your father raised you?
My mother loved looking after us. If in 1986, when mobile phones first came out, when my father bought his first mobile phone, my mum made him buy me one as well, so she could make sure I was all right out working. So in those days, dinner were brought out to it. I'd get up, I would come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to work at 5, and my packed lunch and everything would be ready for me when I go. She looked after us very, very well. Everything was done. When my mother died, I had a very, very big shock in life because I didn't know how to do anything for myself. And I'm not saying that was a good thing, but it was a very steep learning curve. Yes.
So your dad was nearly there, and you had that lovely transition in the business in terms, and have him to guide you as well and bounce ideas off. But that was on the business side. On the personal side, in terms of how to cook, clean, wash your own clothes, etc., I assume that was as a very steep learning curve you had.
If I'm honest, my grandmother and my auntie stepped in and started looking after us in that respect. It wasn't till later in life I actually learned to look after myself properly, and I'm probably talking about my 30s, if I'm honest, and which is ironic now because I do the ironing. I still can't. I cannot cook. I have tried it. I cannot do it. So we have a deal in our household now. Holly cooks, I do the ironing. We leave it at that, okay? It just doesn't work. I can burn things in a microwave, all right? It just doesn't happen.
Very good.
Yeah. But I would say it was one factor in my life that gave me some drive. Because my mother always said to me, it's a little bit of a Del Boy and Rodney moment. My mum said to me on her deathbed, make sure you live your life. And I've taken that with, I have lived my life. I enjoy my life. Life is never easy. But it's enjoyable, isn't it? And I've taken that forward. It's given me, things like that in life have given me some serious drive, And
what would she make of where you're at now? What would she make of all the things you've done since?
One or two things I don't think she'd be too chuffed with, but yeah.
We'll talk about those later.
Yeah, but that's another thing. I'd like to think that they both, my mother and my father, are very proud of. My father's old school. He doesn't say to me, well done and everything. But I know he goes and tells all his friends.
That generation.
Yeah, that generation. My mother was one of those people who would have been proud of me whatever I did. If you see, I growing up in a small rural environment, before mobile phones, before we didn't have a television till 1983. So growing up, myself and my two best friends, one of which being Paul, who still works for me, got ourselves into one or two situations, probably out of, I don't know, boredom or something, that my father gave up and put us all to work in when we were 11, because it was just easier. But whatever happened, my mother always said to me, if you get into any trouble, come home and tell me before someone else does, so I can go, I know. So it was living in a small village, like a rural area, everyone knew everyone's business. Even to the day I passed my driving test, the local policeman came round and said to my mother, thank God Adrian's passed his test. People have stopped phoning me up and telling me he's driving around again. So, yeah, different times, wasn't it? Different times. I'd like to think that where I've got to in life, that she would have been very proud,
So you joined the business again, and your dad, obviously, I'm assuming it was a big loss for him as well. Did that mean he pushed a little bit more responsibility onto you?
At that point, my dad gave me 100% responsibility. That was it. He said, it's yours, you take it forward now.
What did that look like? What are we discussing? The many staff or
those days we were actually quite a small business. We only had 2 or 3 staff and like slightly a smaller business. And I suppose that when you're in your 20s, you want to take the world on, and you're going to take the world on. And I had some very big ideas. And I'd have to say I'm very, very grateful that my father supported everything I wanted to do. Some right, some wrong, but he supported and worked alongside me and helped me. And he was always there for advice, but he never told me what to do. And if I'm honest, to this day, he still doesn't. I actually ask, I guess that when you're in your 20s and your 30s, your levels of confidence make you feel that you can't ask for advice, and it would undermine your decisions if you went and spoke to someone. Now I'm well past that. I've talked to Father a lot about his thoughts, and like everyone looks at things from a different angle, don't they? And some people see things you don't see, and it's always good to get advice and help from people.
Go back though in time, that first day that you were handed the business and you walked out to the yard for the first time and it was yours, what was going through your head on that day? Obviously pre having the confidence, were you excited or were you terrified?
No, I don't think I've never been terrified in any way about business. I was excited. I've always been very proud of our business, if you know what I mean. And it was like I was going forward with it. Probably a little bit more caution would have been good at the time. But in your 20, bearing in mind I was a partner in our business at 24. And looking back on it, maybe too young. But maybe the timings were like we in England were going through major milk price cuts and farming was changing when I took over the business. Probably a little bit like that's happening here now in Ireland. We were there like 25, 30 years ago. And so going headlong into pushing foraging, baling and everything for the long term, maybe I should have been a little bit more cautious. When I first started in 94, 95, 96, the opportunity, like the work, the work was there. Everyone was milking cows, everyone needed straw, the work was there, it was just easy. When you started getting later on into 98, 99, when people were selling up, then things got tough.
How did you feel that? Is that literally because the work was starting to dry up, or did you see it coming on the horizon? What?
The milk prices were going, the demise of the milk marketing board was probably the start of it, wasn't it? And the quotas, and then the processors, the milk was being sold direct to the processors. They were driving the price down, and perhaps with the understanding I have now of business, I could have foreseen what was happening and dealt with it slightly better.
So what did you do? What did?
Well, kept going forward. Where we are, we would have had probably 5 or 10 dairy farms within a 10-mile radius. So work was easy. There was contractors out there. By the year 2000, there was probably down to 2. So everyone was fighting for the same bit of work. We were then going like 40, 50 miles to go silaging. And dairy farmers were struggling to pay us. You can only sustain a business if people pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And they were very much not their fault, but they weren't getting the money for the milk processors. They weren't having enough money to pay us, and so things got quite difficult. I carried on silaging, baling and everything properly until 2005. And the story goes that in 2003, changed from New Holland to Class. Great forager. Wish I'd have gone there years ago. Again, I'm not. In those days, the FXs weren't the most reliable of machines.
Tell me about your biggest horror story with an FX.
I just every day. And when you put something through them, it wasn't just a little thing. It was an absolute devastation. When every time they went wrong properly, like a complete rebuild. You were looking at 20 grand bills every time it went wrong. And we had 2 really good years silaging, but things were getting tight. Yeah. And work was getting harder fought. The money was actually going down, not up. The input costs were going up. And as a long story, we had the man I talked about earlier, Alan Smith, his son actually came to work for us when he left school. Drove in tractors for a bit of experience in life before he joined the business. So Paul was working with us for 2 or 3 years on the silaging fleet. And we were doing a massive chunk of silaging for his dad at the time because they had 1,000 beef cows. And he came to me and said, do you want to sell your foraging stuff as a whole? And it took me a little bit of thinking about, and I was sat there with an overdraft, people not paying their bills, me struggling to pay my bills, and I thought, why am I doing this? It's only going one way.
So talk me through that. What was the value of a silaging fleet at that time. How do you evaluate? How do you take the emotion out of that?
The emotion. So first of all, the emotion. I have to say that for a little while, it probably took me a year to get my head around it. I actually felt at the time like I'd failed. We were still baling and we were still doing bits and pieces, but I decided at that time to get rid of the combine, get rid of the forager, and take away anything that was completely weather related. Emotionally, it was very hard. I have to say, looking back on it now, had I have not done that, it probably would have finished me completely. And the realization at the time it was the way forward was probably it was a really emotional thing to do it, but it saved me in business. You know, I felt like I'd given up on things that I loved. However, looking back on it, I'd actually made a tactical withdrawal from things that would have finished me eventually. Value of the kit, I don't know the numbers, but what it actually did was we had a big building that I kept all the kit in. It actually paid for that to be converted into an industrial let. So we carried on. In 2005, I just did enough to keep me, my father and another guy busy. So we were drilling, doing bits and pieces. I had no finance, no borrowing and money in the bank for the first time in my life.
But even that first year, surely the massive weight came off your shoulders and allowed you to regroup and kind of go.
Well, I had five easy years, if I'm honest. If I didn't want to go to work, I didn't have to go to work because I didn't need to. I had a building that was paying me good rent. I had money in the bank, and I had a good 5 years, which probably I enjoyed a social life that I missed when I was younger, because I would have spent my very younger years just where all I wanted to do was work. I did work and motocross, and that was it. And so I had a good 5 years of enjoying life, taking a bit of time out, still doing enough farming that I enjoyed it. There wasn't the pressure. I had a little bit of time. I met Holly, got married, had a child. And then as soon as Noah was born, solar happened. And I've not seen him since. If you know, that's an exaggeration. But
a lot of people are aspiring to get to that position where they can take the foot off the gas and just enjoy life. You've been there and you've chosen to step back into running the business and being busy all the time. What switch flicked in your head and you're like, right, I've had enough of this. I want to seize this opportunity in solar. Why did you do that? Because
it's in me. I don't even know how to explain. I've got the drive where I'm just, you've got to go forward. You've just got to keep going forward. It's just something in me. I think I was 42 and I'd gone past not being confident and talking to fat. I told him, I said, look, I think this is the next thing. And he said to me, are you sure you're doing the right thing? And I said to him, yeah, it feels right and I'm going to go for it. And he said, well, good for you. He said, and here we are today. There was always going to be an opportunity somewhere. A solar farm had been given planning permission in where I live, Cirencester. Mm-hmm. When they started construction, I went in there and I saw the site manager who was Spanish, and I asked him, was there anything I could do? And the reaction he gave me was, without swearing, he actually told me to foxtrot Oscar. And yeah, I don't think there's any need for, yeah. So that then gave me even more drive to go back. I went back 3 days later and his boss was there, the project manager. He said, yeah, could you come in and do this? Could you do that? Within 2 days, we were in there with tractors, moving stuff around, bits and pieces. We'd worked on it for about 3 or 4 months, just doing little bits and pieces. And then the guy said to me, oh, we made a mess here. Do you think you could put this right? There's this plan that has got to be grass seeded tree. I said, sure we can. No idea what we were doing. No idea, but we were going to do it. Anyway, Paul and I went there, tried to figure it out, fell out every day for a week. Tried all sorts of different things. Within a week, we'd actually found a way of doing what we needed between the panels to seat the panel. Bearing in mind, we'd just got standard agricultural tractor, probably had about 4 tractors still at that point. it was a challenge, but we got there. We'd finished that one, and the guy said to me, "Oh, there's 4 more. Do you want to have a look at this?" Yeah, sure we do. As time went on, we sort of found ways of doing everything. The difference was, but coming to Britain, most of the solar farms were built in Spain. Well, they don't grow vegetation in Spain in bits and pieces. So the vegetation management and the seeding and the landscape mitigation works was something they'd never experienced. We were the go-to people. And it just went on from there. And it just snowballed overnight.
When you say snowballed, I can picture you literally sorting the stuff out with you and Paul and your boys. Snowballed to what? I mean, are you involved now in the actual, when they're planning a new site, they'll come to you and say, right, we've got to do X, Y, and Z. What's involved, Adrian, or where are we at?
The landscape mitigation and the biodiversity now is a big thing for going through planning. Companies actually come and talk to us now about our thoughts on how things should be done. So you would get ecologists putting various things in a solar farm. It's gone beyond me. I still have a little bit of input, but then we now have younger, cleverer people dealing with it. Josh has a degree in land management. Charlie has various biodiversity qualifications, and they sit down and talk to people about what's feasible and what isn't feasible for the operation and maintenance of a solar farm with biodiversity things. So yes, they come to us. We are probably now the biggest independent solar contractor in Great Britain with what we do.
So is your business purely on-site build, or have you got a maintenance aspect?
We go into a bare field, we put the roads in, fence around the site, put the compounds in, put the roads in. We then go in, put the concrete, all the footings, the concrete, various things like that. Other contractors will come in and put the cables in, put the panels in. We then go in with a landscaping team, level it, make it pretty, plant the wild flowers, plant the hedges, plant the trees, put the bird boxes in, the hibernaculars, the beetle banks, the bug hotels, all of the bits and pieces.
Explain to me why you need a bug hotel in your solar farm.
Well,
where are they going to stay, John?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A dry cover and below a panel.
Yeah. Basically, all that is some kind of a box with loads of tubes in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've built a business around doing this stuff. You know, we then, once that's finished, we generally sign like a 3 or 5 year maintenance contract after. So we would go in and cut the grass, look after the weeds, clean the panels, cut the hedges, make sure the trees grow, make sure the hedges grow, and keep it clean, report on it, and look after it.
So you brought over your wee Fendt, the 3.1, no, was it?
211.
211. What do you use that for in the sites?
So there was another 2014. We come across given a load more sites. Bear in mind this time we'd done probably we'd landscaped 30 of them. We know everything. We get this site that's 2.5 meters wide. Nothing will go down it, and it's like, oh, what are we going to do here? So we were given the site in the autumn. We didn't have to do it this spring, and I was running around trying to find. Like, I had no idea. I was looking at all kinds of things, and where we live, not too far away in the Vale of Evesham, Ross-on-Wye, are all the fruit farms and everything. And our local Fendt dealer said, I've got something might be of interest to you. So he took me down and saw this first 211. Wow, what a thing. Couldn't believe it. Yeah. I don't know where it come from, but it ended up with a nickname as a little princess, because it was just such a little thing. So the nickname now is princesses in our bit. Like, they're all princesses. So ended up buying this tractor that was it was the size of a dinky toy, 110 horsepower, front PTO, rear PTO, and we were putting 3 meter power hours on them and doing everything. But just unbelievable thing. We've obviously gone on from there. I mean, they just facilitate everything within the panels. We're still using, we've got cutting teams out today with 724. We try and use all of our agricultural tractors when they're not farming are on solar, because they all need to pay the bills. But those little tractors, they've got a heart of a lion.
And you've even progressed now into electric tractors as well, is that right?
We had our first electric tractor last year over from Fendt. We are going to go that way because we need to. We're just waiting. There's 2 things. We're in talks with people now to put the charging points on the solar farm, and the biggest delay for us at the moment is getting a three-phase grid connection to our works. But they will have their place.
So you say you're going to get someone because you need them. Why do you need them?
Actually, look, there's no secret. I love burning diesel. It is a passion of mine. But within the business we're in, we do need to look at the way forward. And if you are charging an electric tractor off of the solar farm you're cutting, right, what's better than that? You know, there is a perfect deployment for it, isn't it? And we have done a load of cutting with them last year. The Fent sent us a tractor out, you know, same principle as the 211. Great little tractor. Fent have had that in development for 8 or 9 years to get it right, and it is right.
How, obviously the biggest concern there of mine is always with tractors and trucks, the sheer weight of the work, the battery life. I mean, realistically, what can a machine do in a shift?
Right. Where it is at the moment, we could get we cut for 4.5 hours, it would go for 5 hours on a charge, right? The charging point on the solar farm was strong enough to charge that in 45 minutes back up to full charge.
Okay.
Okay, so we tend to do 12-hour days. It is mentally tiring working between solar panels, so everyone needs to have a break. Well, that's charging. Well, you're having a break.
Give me an idea of, is that a princess-sized tractor? Or is that
exactly the same, yeah. It's a 107E or a one, I can't remember the numbers.
And it's cutting grass or what?
Yeah, it was cutting grass, okay. I think you might struggle on a 3 metre per hour to get a good length of charge out, so you'd have to use it sensibly, but cutting and cleaning would be the right...
Light duties.
Yeah, light duties, but it went well.
You're running a fairly big business and you've got a lot of firefighting, I guarantee, to deal with.
Yep.
I'm running a smaller business and I have a less firefighting to deal with, but my own version of it. And like at night time, when I get in the thick of something, like I can accelerate towards midnight. And if I'm really into something, some task needs done, I'll rattle into 2 o'clock in the morning, no problem. But where do you find the time to look at the bigger picture and not just be firefighting all the time? How do you manage that?
I have a really good team with me, okay? And we are a team that I am very lucky that a lot of the day-to-day stuff I don't deal with anymore. So I would always be involved in most of the decisions. So we'd a fencing manager, a farming manager, a construction manager, and a landscaping manager, and a transport manager. They only come to me when there's problems. My thinking time, I'll go off on the lorry working on my own, on the tractor. I'll get phone calls when there's firefighting to do for, you know, how would I look at this? What can we do? Okay. I find when I'm away working, I've got a clear mind. So you can come up with like, so bang, that's it. Do it that way, blah, blah, blah. And I get my thinking time then. Or out on a lorry, like last night, coming over here, I got in the lorry yesterday afternoon, 3:30. I had 4 hours in the lorry where you can just start to wind down. And then once you start winding down from the day stuff, you can just start thinking, right, we need to do this, this, and this.
I would call it the difference in the size of our two businesses. You've been able to have those 5, 6 people that are all like delegated sort this. But when you were slightly smaller, you hadn't that kind of manpower in place.
Yeah.
How did you establish that structure, and how did you go, right, okay, you handle this, that, and the other, and you ring me whenever this happens or that happens, and you decide, where's the boundaries for each of those managers?
I don't know. Things have just... I guess there's never been a structure about how we've done it. It's just evolved into what it's done. You know, I've always had that trust with Paul in the farming side. Paul would deal with that, and I would ask him questions.
But like, there's things that'll kill your business quickly, which is, A, you've got someone in the room who's not managing their people well, and all of a sudden all their people want to leave.
Yeah.
Or B, someone's spending way more cash and committing something that they shouldn't be, and all of a sudden you're tight for money.
Right. Businesses, cash flow is always a challenge, right? No matter what business you're in, cash flow is always a challenge. However, no payments go out of my business now without me signing them off. I, being grown up in an agricultural industry where everything was done on a handshake, being very naive to the world and not being the most academic people, I got very badly scammed and nearly ended up in prison through not realising someone was scamming my emails, changing my invoices, putting a skim on top. I was still getting paid and knew nothing about it until we got a knock on the door from HMRC, FBI and various people branding guns because the company that we were dealing with went fraudulently bankrupt for God knows how many billion US dollars. That was an eye-opener.
How did that happen?
Well, I was sending my invoices to an email inbox that wasn't for the company that were paying me. I was getting paid. They were putting lumps of money on top of it. And I had no knowledge of this. I was still getting paid.
Was this like a third-party service? You're like, oh, if I send my paperwork to them, they'll send it on?
No, I didn't even know. I was just told to send email. When I was working for a company and I was told to send my invoices to an email address. Bearing in mind, this is 2014.
Yeah.
Okay. Very new to email. A man that's dyslexic and barely read, and I'm still doing everything myself.
Yeah.
Yep. Very easy. Oh, there's some clever people out, far cleverer than me. It was over a lump of VAT that was outstanding, that wasn't down to me, and I couldn't. When you deal with HMRC, you have to prove your innocence. I was an Orange email in between it happening and then picking up on it. Orange shut the server down, went to EE. I couldn't prove my innocence. I put my hand up for tax evasion, basically, and I had to do a deal so I didn't go to prison, and that's had another impact on my life. But just because there's some clever people out there.
Explain to me how that unfolded. Like, literally, did they arrive in the street with the guns, or what?
Yes.
And who do you call in that moment and go, what on earth is this?
Well, you're stood there slightly clenched. Right. First of all, I thought it was a red diesel raid. As you do when you're a farming business, and thinking, has anyone put any red diesel in? Wasn't. And the guns kind of, but not only did they raid our yard, they raided the home as well. It was serious. Poor Holly, with a very young child, went through that. And never mind me, Holly had to deal with that at home. I've the greatest respect for Holly for holding it all together. It isn't just me, as much as until recently, Holly was never involved in the business. She was still at home. We all know that we need that support. Before we go any further into it, number one, I didn't do it. And number two, it was over 30 grand's worth of VAT, and I was sat with over £250,000 in the bank. Why would I worry about it? Anyway,
Yeah.
Look, that's done. Again, it's given me the drive, but there's some clever people out there.
But like, when you say raid the place, they come looking for paperwork? What are they looking for?
They searched every drawer and everything in the house. It was serious. And we didn't have a clue what it was about at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not going to tell you anything until they finish having a look?
No, they didn't tell us anything. I had we were all told to stay where we were and nothing could move. And it wasn't, I got taken away 8 hours later for an interview, and it wasn't till I knew what it was about. I had no clue. I thought it was a red diesel raid.
That'd be a long day trying to figure out what's going on.
It was a confusing day, if I'm honest. This isn't just like a VAT thing. This is major fraud. Yeah.
So what's that like, negotiating with HMRC?
You don't negotiate with HMRC, right? There's two things. Our good friend Barry Reid said a statement. He said, there's two things that you can't negotiate with, the weather and the taxman, and he's not wrong. The good thing for me, or the one thing that's recently come out with the post office thing, okay, all of these government departments, they are their own entity. They are above the law, okay? Now, since this has happened, I now know that there 2 or 3 other people had got caught the same way, but they never told me anything. The difference is, when you're dealing with HMRC or any government department, you have to prove your innocence. Court of law, they have to prove your guilt beyond reasonable doubt. You deal with the government, you've got to prove your innocence. The Orange had shut their server down and I couldn't prove what I did to my emails.
But that's a perfect storm situation. That's not just one thing's gone wrong. It's 2 or 3 or 4 different things all had to go wrong to put you in that
honest,
situation.
It's the first, and it did have quite an impact on me personally. It was hard going out. I did feel ashamed about it, and it did have some impact on the business. I went to a New Holland Open Day the next day after, right, and when someone mentioned it to me, I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me, but I didn't. Because I knew in my own mind I hadn't done it, I stood there and I felt like, come on, bring it on. It was what Holly thought, okay, and it was what my family thought, okay, and I'm very lucky they believe me, okay? I don't care, whatever you get in life when you're in business and start to do well, people will always start, the saying is, only half the lies that are told about me are true, right? I don't care what the real world think. I know, I am happy in my own mind. I didn't do it. Whatever other people think, crack on. I don't care anymore.
But that's perfect in your own mindset of it. That's exactly how I would be as well. But then, did it impact the business at all?
Of course it did. Yeah, of course it did. there were clients that picked. If I'm honest, because we were so big in the market at the time, there were people using it against us. But the good people we worked for, just whatever, like, you know, I did have to spend a little bit of time explaining myself. But what do you do? You've still got to go for, you know, things like that drive you stronger. But I guess in recent years, like as much as it was very hard for all the people at the post office, I could feel their pain because I went through the same thing. You
didn't watch any of the TV shows and experience PTSD?
No. Well, that's why I can't watch them. Yeah, I guess I will one day. But I felt, you know, when the more the story came out, the more I think, yeah. And that's, you know, again, that's 10 years, 12 years down the line. Here we still are, you know. I do have the fight in me to survive. I need to be in control of my money because it is my money. It's not a company, it's my money. It is still my money.
So that's rule one.
Yeah.
Rule two, people. How do you delegate that authority and find people that you trust to not implode your team?
Everyone needs to build trust, and I have some really good, people. Paul was the first man that took responsibility for things away from me. But Paul and I have been friends for so many years that I've complete trust in Paul. It doesn't mean we don't argue often, but I've complete trust in Paul. I really have no input now in the farming side of our business.
I would look at Paul in your world as like Paul's like your brother. You know, he's effective like almost like family.
Yeah.
You trust him implicitly, and he's running a big portion of your business.
Yeah.
But there's still everybody else that you don't isn't your brother.
Yeah, but then they earn that trust. Like you can see, it's about having trust in the people that work for you, and then if anything is slightly, I'm very lucky that the people that are managing come to me when they're not quite sure of something. What do you see about this?
So. But you say that these people earn trust, which I totally understand, totally get. But the people that you have in those, say, 4 or 5 key managerial positions in the business, setting Paul to one side, they have to have been appointed into the business. What are you looking for when you're hiring somebody into that level of role that makes you think that's the right person?
I've not hired anyone to a role. Everyone finds their level. And you very quickly know someone who can manage something and someone who can't. And along the way, you may need to interfere, for want of a better word, to steer things in the right direction. I'm very lucky that most of the managers within our business have proved their worth. They've proved their worth more than what, you know, in the fact that they're mine. I'm lucky that the managers, or most of the managers in our business, have the same mindset as me. You know, they know that that they treat it as their own business. They see, you know.
How do you cultivate that? How do you get that accountability, responsibility to be instilled in the people?
I think it's in them. It's either in them or it's not. I mean, everyone starts at the bottom. Like in my mind, I was brought up to start at the bottom, and everyone that's come, like, I've 2 managers in my mind, Jason and Josh. Jason came and started driving a mini digger in the rain as a construction operative. He's now construction manager. He's worked his way to there, and he's built just because his mind worked. Like Jason he understands how we do. You know, I can't even. It's just in him. And then Josh is actually now gone in to be commercial manager. But Josh started cutting grass while he was doing his degree for land management. So he started on a strimmer and worked his way right through. So he then went to landscaping manager. He still does oversee a little bit, but he's now commercial manager. So he understood what he was doing all the way along. With Josh, it was slightly different. He was doing his degree. I always hoped that he'd be the man to get involved with the landscaping because he had that. You could see he had that in him. He asked the right questions, but he was there cutting grass right at the bottom. So when he was managing that, he knew exactly what he was managing.
You said earlier you took a lot of big risks. Like I'm risk adverse. I like a good risk, but a very calculated, I can afford this to go wrong risk. Did you take risks that if this went wrong?
Well, I think the expression that I started my solar journey with was, if you're going to drown in a puddle, you just as well drown in a pond. So the first 5 years, if it had gone wrong, I was drowning in an ocean, not just a pond. Yeah, I think, you know, like no matter where you are in a business level, there are still risks. I think, you know, even, and I keep banging on about it. I think we are in a tougher economic climate at the moment than we have been for a long time, and there are still risks, you know. And I would say we have a very well-established business, but you've still got to be careful. The first 5 years, I ploughed everything. You know, I would a nice industrial unit that was paying me a good wage for doing nothing. You know, so I ploughed everything into it. I would have lost everything I had it gone wrong. It was a leap of faith for me. If I look back on what I did now, I probably should have been a lot more cautious on growing it. It's all very well to buy all this kit on finance.
Why did I ask that question? You came through the wave where, at the time, I'm sure you thought machinery was expensive. It has gone to another level.
Yeah.
How much should be on finance versus how much should be paid down?
The problem is that from my father's day to now, my father never borrowed any money to do anything. My grandmother bought my father his first tractor. He earned enough money in his first year to buy a new baler, and he bought a new baler everywhere because there was money in it, because machinery wasn't so expensive and there wasn't the people doing it.
Yep.
To my generation, where you couldn't buy, things had got expensive and you couldn't buy all of it, so you had to do it on finance. Now things have got horrendously expensive, haven't they? And there is if you want a 250 horsepower tractor, it's £200,000. Who's got that to go and buy a tractor? And I don't know whether, unless you have got some very good beneficiaries, who now has got the money to set up contracting?
But that was you said everything has to wipe its own face. So
Yeah.
even if you've got a beneficiary, how should you look at that 200 grand tractor? How much work does it need to do?
Yeah.
How do you justify it sitting idle? How do you justify the cash flow tied up in it? How much is from finance? How much is your own money?
I actually don't think that ag contracting on its own anymore can survive. So most of the big contractors that you have here have other businesses as well, don't they? So they have a dairy farm with it, they have an AD plant, they build sheds, they do mechanics. You know, the agricultural contracting income is almost unsustainable now, I think.
But
Yeah.
given the way the sector's gone, you've got farms are getting bigger, and you've either got a big enough farm to have staff
Yep.
and your own kit and the labour to get it done, or you're small enough that you can't afford that kit, you have to have a contractor, and that contractor's struggling to find the labour to even work the gear.
Yep.
What happens to this sector here that isn't sustainable like these guys? You know,
Those are the ones that are going to struggle, because people only want them for 6 months of the year, don't they? I actually think that ag contracting is a waiting game. You're doing more waiting than you are working. And this is, for us, like our ag contracting only survives because when tractors aren't busy on solar, on farming, they're on solar, even a 942. Tractors are that expensive. They've got to work 10 months of the year, haven't they?
what do you do with a 942 on solar?
Cultivating, power harrowing.
Okay.
Yeah, or we sometimes haul water about. We've got tankers we put water on for the panel cleaning, but it still has to go and work. I mean, it has been known to go bale wrapping when nothing else is in the shed, but tractor, the guy that goes out and buys a tractor just to go contracting, you're just sat there doing, unless you've got something else that's going to earn your money out of it, it isn't going to pay the bills, is it?
You know, they talk about the stock market, these red flags, there's these signals. It's like,
Yeah.
it's all going to come crashing down. If you're that contractor and you're feeling that squeeze and you've got a fair bit of finance, you've got a fair bit of kit, you're established, you're not new, but you're not
Yep.
the biggest. What do you think is the red flag warnings that it is definitely time to reconsider what you're doing?
I know this is happening in Ireland in a few places now with a few people, and I won't mention any names, but the fact is, I keep going back to the 30 years ago. We had all these small family farms that were there like you have now, like the 50, 60 acres and everything. When these people start selling those farms and they come into bigger units, right, and it keeps happening, that's the red flags. Or when the banks stop supporting farming, which they're doing at the moment in Ireland, I understand, banks will never hold an umbrella up on a rainy day, will they? They'll only hold an umbrella up when it's not needed. And they're withdrawing overdrafts and cutting people's borrowing, aren't they? So that something's coming. But the red flags will be when the little dairy herds start disappearing. You guys, like I have admiration in the fact that a lot of the family farms here, the mum and dad in their 70s are still on the farm. The oldest son milks the cows, goes out and does a day job, right? And the farm survives. I actually think that, you know, when they're on 50 or 60 acres, I think that's well respected. The day that starts going is the red flag day.
Well, the obvious question about solar is, in our industry of agriculture, is a little bit controversial.
Yeah.
Is using good productive farmland to produce electricity. It's the same as I would argue AD plants. It's like taking good productive land to feed to produce electricity. Where is the happy place? I mean, what's your take on it? Because you've worked in both industries.
First thing that I would say is that in the late 30s, 38, 39, 4 million plus acres of unproductive land were ploughed up for the war ag. More than half of that has never ever been put back to orchard, pasture land and stuff like that. So I can't think of too many solar farms we work on that are actually good ground. So I'm obviously banging a drum for solar because we work in it. I'm also like to see farming do better for itself. What I would say is the land that's going into solar is putting stuff back to grassland. One, you've got your biodiversity in there. You've got wildlife that I haven't seen, wildflowers, plants. And my thoughts are that solar farms should be used instead of SFI. You can graze sheep on them and you've got an enclosed site. It's still productive arable land. A lot of this land was only farmable with chemical fertilizers. And with the price of chemical fertilizers today, makes it unsustainable, doesn't it? A lot of the stuff that we are doing on solar is, we have a phrase internally in our business for it that I probably can't repeat here, but it wouldn't be bigging it up, okay? A lot of it is really awful land.
Okay.
And I do feel, as an industry, in fact, with the farming head on, we are producing too much. And maybe a couple of 100,000 acres of arable land out of production might do some good. If a man, right, everyone knows that farming incomes they're a struggle to survive. If a man's got 100 acres of solar in and he's earning at least £100,000 a year out of it, and it's keeping him farming, surely that's a good thing, isn't it?
It is, but it's like, you know, where we come from here, not every bit of ground's good ground. And when we hear arable ground going back into solar farms, you're sort of looking like, could we not find a bit of bog or mountain to put this on?
Or the roof of a building.
Well, look, I can't argue that. I do feel that all new houses should have solar panels on the roof and a battery charging unit, you know, and they will get there. But just remember, in England, it's a slightly different story. We've got a lot of land that isn't bog, right, isn't mountain, but isn't good arable land. And it should never, ever have been ploughed up.
But at the same time, you know, it's that trade-off. You know, people in our industry, I guess the agricultural side of things, they don't like the thought of big arable farms going into solar. But see, on the other side of the coin, who wants to live beside a coal-fired power plant?
No, people don't like change.
But the other thing is, we are going through some massive changes within the agricultural industry at the moment. And people need to understand that if farmers do not diversify in some way to subsidise their income, they will no longer be farming the way things are. That might change, but we are in a global market, we are a small country, and probably only the eastern half of England is very good arable land. We're on the Cotswolds, our land is not great. It's all ploughed up because there's not the stock anymore. But if fertilizers keep rising, or with the current situation in the Gulf, fertilizers aren't available, most of this land will not be planted because it is unsustainable. So surely farmers diversifying a little bit and surviving to produce food another day when it is viable is the way forward.
What's your take on food security then? From an island, we live on an island perspective, we're already not producing enough to feed the population. What's your take on that? Like, should the government be intervening, going, look, you've got to buy local first, or are you happy with the global market?
No, I'm not. I would like to see everything local. Unfortunately, that our government and most governments are so far removed from the real world now, they don't understand things. I mean, I do not understand how you can have an agriculture minister that's never been farming. How does that work? You know, the other thing is that we have in England, as you hear, like my father said this when he was interviewed, and it's a very good thing. There are too many people not involved in farming now. You guys over here now, you would probably all have someone somewhere that's involved in farming, a family farm or some history of farming. You're still not that far away in a generation from all farming. We've lost that in England. We've really lost that. You know, when I was growing up, we probably still had that a little bit, but 30, 40 years on, we've not got that. You know, people are so far removed from farming, they don't understand it. They don't understand what goes on. They don't know the time constraints. They don't know what the weather affects. All they want to do is go to the supermarket and pick their food up. They don't care where it comes from, and that's sad.
How do you get people, the general public, for example, to care about farming, though? I guess it's a big multi-million-dollar question. But
well, how do you? And it's only the people with the understanding or the connection to agriculture that would go to that shelf and buy that pint of milk for 50p more that is on grass-fed cows that go out, opposed from that factory, cheap milk that they're inside all day, every day, because that's the way the market has driven it. You know, people don't understand that. They don't see it, do they? And I'd like to see people have more understanding. You know, we are in quite an affluent part of England now. We're getting limitations on what time we can work out in the fields because people are complaining about the noise and the smell. You know, come on, you guys haven't got there yet, but the more people get removed from farming, the more that'll happen.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope. And for me coming over here, it's good to see. It's almost like a little bit of nostalgia, seeing all these family farms and bits and pieces that are still there, everyone connected. You know, I come into Ireland with my tractors and they're fairly well known. I get pulled into Deira and the first question I get asked by the guy in Deira, where's the Tugwell? You know, that's good to see. You know, yes, it's a big up for me, but for just people understanding and seeing it. And, I'll go on the boat home and even all the lorry drivers who are connected from, they know who I am and what I do. They always come up and have a chat. That's great. We've lost that in England now. Yes, you do get like the extremists. I went down to Devon last weekend, lovely bunch of people, or still a few smaller farms. You know yourself, you've been there.
I always thought that peninsula is it's like a pocket of culture that's like ours here.
Yes,
in Northern
exactly.
Ireland.
And you get that and people are in. We've not got that anywhere in the Mid-Shire. You know, our country fairs now are a load of stalls selling like cheeses and just nonsense.
Jacuzzis, lawnmowers.
Yeah, nothing to do with farming. That's gone because we are in, I've said it before, we're white settler belt. We are, everyone comes down on the train. We're the Cotswolds. They come down on the train from London, drive through with a window down and think they're part of the gentry. You know, we've lost the community. The village lovely little village I live in, but it is white settler paradise, That's the way that the rural places are going.
You'd mentioned before, obviously, the impact that On the Pool has had. Talk a little bit about the few years before On the Pool, because you said that On the Pool changed you, but what did you change from?
The probably 10 years between starting solar and On the Pool, I just worked, slept, and just my whole time was involved. There was my brain capacity was just all work. I had no outside interests or anything. Yes, I was still involved in tractors, still love my tractors and bits and pieces. I just remember going somewhere with Holly and Noah, and my brain was just in work. How are we going to sort this out? What are we going to do? And Holly said to me, are you even here? And she was right, and that wasn't long before I decided I needed to get out and do some other things. But I'd got to a position where, where the first 7-8 years of the solar bit, it's hard work, everything. And it's still, most of the money does go back in to keep evolving it. But it's now getting to the stage where I have a really good team that make things work. So I can take a little time away. Holly would always run on a Sunday morning. So I'd be at home with Noah, the dogs and everything. And Sunday morning is my, let's catch up with, see what tractors we can find on the internet and watch tractors. I'd seen On the Pool 2019 and I was fascinated by it, absolutely fascinated by it. And I'd watched it and watched it. I reckon I'd probably be 10,000 of those views, you know, it did. And I thought, if that ever comes up, I am in for it. And I'd then started following you guys on Facebook and I'd then subscribed and it came up and I was straight on it. And a couple of us came over. I think I brought a 7.6 and the 89.7. I was coming to win. That was a hot tractor. I'd not experienced. I didn't know anything about it. We don't turn tractors up in England, or never did. Didn't know anything about it, but I was in with a chance here, you know. Wow, that was a steep learning curve. Anyway, no, and I said to Holly, look, I'm going to go and start doing a few tractor things. Great, you know. Anyway, so the story goes, over I came. Very interested. I was bouncing with excitement, and I still am about it. Very moist morning, as we both know. I came in with a 7.6 two-wheel drive, couldn't even get up the field. I had to have 2 goes at it, so that was but as much as I got put firmly in my place, the buzz and excitement I got from it, you know, I'd not really experienced the adrenaline rush like that since my motocross days. I was buzzing all the way, but I've seen, like, the people I know now, they were certainly, I gave them some sport laughing at it, you know, and rightly so. Alistair, you know, respect to Alistair Cook, he was the man that sparked my interest back in life. So I was away home, and I knew on my way home the decision was I'd either go back to England and hide and never be seen again in public, or I would come back with a vengeance. And 2024, I came back with a vengeance. You know, I think from the moment I got home to the moment I came back, I was wanted to come back. And it really sparked some enthusiasm about life back into me. And it's very interesting that Holly came over last year to a tractor pulling event up at Rev It Up. She was there, you know, it was just like a family day and everything. She said, I've seen the old Adrian back here. You're really, you know, it's given me another lease of life, you know, it really has.
Talk to me about the tractor pulling fraternity. Obviously On the Pole is kind of a unique event, but you've really got head and ears into the tractor pulling.
Yeah.
Contrast the English experience to the Irish experience. What's happening with the community here?
Okay,
I know it's growing, but I'm not really in it.
The English thing, I did ask whether I could go tractor pull in England. It was a flat no. Weren't interested, don't want me there. No problem. Tractor's not safe, can't be made. You know, okay, no, not a problem. Your loss. And the tractor pulling, the interest in tractor pulling in Ireland is growing, like the pace it's growing, the people that are turning up there. And it's good. For me, everyone has their thing. The big modified stuff isn't my thing. I don't see the relevance for tractors. When you come to Ireland, there's a field of tractors there that 90% of them will be going out to work the next day, or they've come off a dung spreader the day before and they're going on a plough the day after. Great to see, but there's not one standard tractor in Ireland, and I've learnt that very quickly. You know what, you guys, if you want 200 horsepower in Ireland, you buy 150 and turn it up, don't you? If we want 200 horsepower in England, we buy 300. You know, and that's the way it goes. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve, and unfortunately,
because we couldn't afford it, Adrian. We can't afford to buy 300 horsepower.
Yeah, no, well. Unfortunately, the diesel addiction has caught me, you know, and it's been a learning curve. But you get to that field, and the common denominator is tractor. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, whether you're orange or green. The common denominator is tractors. Everyone gets in that field and talks tractors, and it's such. The pleasure is as much about pulling with the tractor as actually catching up with people and enjoying it and having a good time. You know, I've made some really, really good friends tractor pulling, really good friends, you know, and I'm so glad that has started. You know, it's like getting away. I've some really good friends back home, but most are connected with business. You know, I come here and get away from it. I'm in a field with like-minded people. We're burning some diesel. We're having some fun. And it's as good to lose as it is good to win, you know.
Is it very competitive? I mean, do guys get really pedantic about the rules and, oh, he done this and he done that?
A little bit, yes. As you've probably seen from some of the, well, you might not have seen, but some of the chats say they do get a little bit excitable about things. However, let's put this into perspective. The future of the Western world doesn't depend on that result, does it?
No.
Right? We're not Formula One, right? And it doesn't, there's not millions of pounds of money riding on it. We're in a field in Ireland fighting over a bit of plastic. Come on. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
It's not the bit of plastic though. It's the bragging rights. It's the fact you're never going to hear the end of it. If
you went home beat to England and you I'm coming back to win. If you'd said to you that day, I was sure, look, it's only a bit of plastic. Who cares, Adrian?
That was more a pride thing. Yeah. Yeah. Because in my mind, I was coming here to win and didn't. Yeah. But I don't know whether that was just the excitement about it, that if I'm coming back, I need to stand my ground kind of thing.
But it's not like same for all these guys that are coming with their tractor that they had the dung spreader the day before. It's like I'm coming to win,
Yeah, look, everything. I've recently, again, I'm in a lucky position that we run a few lorries and I've got the ability to go. We went to Belgium pulling. That was an experience.
Tell me about that.
I talked to a few guys, like the tractor pulling community around Europe is massive. And we all, people, I didn't actually realise the following that the tractors in Ireland have out in Europe. Mine, Big Blue, Barry Reed's John Deere, Shane Potter's Fiat, the following is unbelievable. Anyway, they were talking, we were talking, there was a pull in Belgium, come on out. So why not? Sure. Got the tractor up and running out. We went. The paperwork side of it was a challenge. Okay, but again, I've got a really good transport manager sort of. So we go. I go out of Harwich on the night boat because it's just easier than going through France. Trying to travel through France. It's just not an easy thing with lorries and bits of speed. So I go on a night boat. There was 8 or 9 of us went on the boat, full of excitement. Didn't get me paperwork stamped. So I arrive in Holland, get to the border. It's not happening. Yeah, it's not happening. And I'm thinking, my bottom lip is firmly out. So anyway, I've managed to negotiate with the guy in customs that I'd leave my trailer in port and go and watch the tractor pulling. So we're parked up, just waiting to move, get the trailer off. And a man in a car says, you can go. And I'm thinking, righto, we get in a lorry and we hightail it out of that port. What he meant is we could go with the lorry and not the trailer, but the trailer's on the back. So we're out of customs and we're heading down to Belgium a bit lively out of Holland. The phone's ringing. It's Dutch customs. We need you to come back. Yeah, no problem. I'm coming back. I did go back, but it was the next day. So the phone went. So the phone's off. That's it. We're going pulling. So I was on another level of adrenaline by the time I get to the pool. So we get there. There's Emma, Sherry, Shane Potter have arrived by. They're already there. My guys, I'm fairly lively anyway. I was on another planet. I was the adrenaline. And we get there, we line up everything. If I had a heart monitor on it that time with what I think I'd have been yeah, very much so, because I could feel it. So I get out. And bearing in mind, I'm in a class of 37 and I reckon 25 of them were tractors over 500 horsepower. Mine's just the norm over there. My first pull, I'm that on another level. I pulled the sledge 20 metres past the full pull mark. Yeah. I'm in 15th gear on my tractor by the time I'm going. That's how it was. What an event, though. I mean, just the people out there was so, the interest of us turning up there. I mean, there's a video on TikTok that's got 10 million views of me pulling out in Belgium.
Describe their event compared to our event. Is this like a big one that you were invited to where there's lots of people at it, or a local event?
A full complement. They have 3 pulling tracks. It's a big event. But there's your 3 state. You get people come to look at the tractors. You get people come to see the pulling. And then the after party was another level again. There was 10,000 people turn up to the after party that was an old school rave.
There's one loose end that I want to tie up.
Go ahead.
What was the reaction of the Dutch customs when you arrived back in the port the next day?
Wow. I was kind of expecting a little bit of bed and breakfast at the House of Orange, if you know what I'm saying. Right. So I had a passenger with me in the lorry. We pre-booked him on anywhere. I went on my own and everything. And I pulled back into the Hook of Holland, and I basically had to switch I just turn my mind off it during the day, and I'm going back there, and to say I'm getting a little bit apprehensive. So I pull in there, I get let in, and then we get to customs, and I'm thinking, I get way through. Then I get stopped halfway on through, and the bloke said to me, "You're not cleared from customs." I went, "Oh God, here we go." 5 minutes later, waves me through. I get back to England and go into customs there, and they know all about it, and they're laughing and say, "How the hell did you do that?" I think because they'd made such a mistake to let me out and back in, right? I wasn't, like, I'm going there to go tractor pulling. I'm not, like, it's no big deal. Come on, it's a bit, right, it was one rubber stamp. Come on. Yeah. It, you know, I don't know, but I was expecting a little bit more grief. I've not been back out since, so I might try and go through France next time just to avoid that one.
What are you looking forward to over the next, say, 10 years? Give us, I guess, something positive.
At 60, yeah.
It's 60. Don't know, I actually didn't think I'd get to 40, so I'm probably 16 years in credit now. I'm not a person that will retire. So my father, bless him, who's a month off of 90, is still on the tractors. So we don't generally retire in our family. We still try and work. His father is, we've got to get him into the tractor now, if you know what I mean, but he's still doing his bit.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased. So we spoke about Holly earlier and everything, but Holly now is part of the business. Like we've got, as much as we're a big business, Holly is now HR manager. Let's see where I'm not ever going to force Noah's hand into anything. He'll find his own way. If he doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
If he wants to join, where are you going to start him?
Right at the bottom. He has to. He's got to see yes, he might get fast track, but he's got to be the man that picks those stones. He's got to be the man that trims that grass. Because if he does that, then he'll get respect. But not only respect, if he works his way up, he'll understand what the people on the ground are doing. And you need that. And I do feel in wider industry, right, all of these people are coming out of university with degrees to be managers, but they don't know what they're managing. How does that work? We do probably try and treat our children better than we were treated. Where does that stop? You know, I don't want...
Yeah, you don't want to be as tough on him as your dad was on you, but yet you want to get the same qualities that you appreciated having
exactly
now.
That. I want him to appreciate what happens on the ground. Because if you appreciate and see what's going on the ground, you know what you're managing, you can understand the choices you're making. We'll see what happens. He's 12, he's 12 now, so we'll see where that goes. I've gone through a period where he's about playing games on the egg box and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And won't come. And now he's out on a quad bike and he's out on a quad bike playing around with me, which is fine, which is good. He's getting a bit of interest about being, but it's tough. You know, we are a very health and safety driven business. So Noah really shouldn't be anywhere near tractors or quad bikes at this age. But where do you stop? Like, I learned my interest came from being on a tractor from the days of being in Nappy. You know, I knew what to do before I could do it.
Yeah.
And it's in my DNA. We're taking that away, aren't we? If you're taking, you get the interest in farming from being a child and being around it, don't you? And they're saying that kids can't be in a tractor till 13. The safest place for a child's in 30. You've been through the negativity on that one, I know. But that's the problem with people being too far removed from farming.
And how many horsepower do you want to have in 5 years' time?
Let's finish on the high on the tractors.
Yeah.
You said you go to collect a few. That's a Sunday's job, is getting online, seeing what there is and everything. Let's go with your 10 favourite tractors, whether you own them or you want them.
Okay.
Tuggernaut's obviously going to be one of those 10.
Blue is definitely my colour. The Tuggernaut is my baby, okay? So the love of 70 series came, I drove my first 70 series in 1996, 30 years ago. So we owned them back in the day. Were lovely tractor, great tractors. So yes, when that came up, I bought it, didn't kind of expect the journey that I've been on with it, but the excitement you get when you drive that. So that is number one. TM165 that I own, we had a good fleet of TMs, loved it. Fendt, I've a few Fendts. I've a nice 820 that I've put in the back of the shed. That was the catalyst for my journey in Fendt. I am actually trying to be a little bit clever and try and collect some collectible tractors that will increase in value as life goes on.
Well, given what the collectible tractor market has done, even in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
like 10 years ago, you could have bought a John Deere 7810 at under 30 grand
Yeah.
and in great shape, less than 10,000 hours. And that
Yeah.
tractor today is worth 60 grand.
Yeah.
What is collectible right now? What are you looking for? How do you find something that's going to appreciate in value?
So I'm trying to look at the modern day classics. So I have all the I have a 7000. I have a flat cab. I've still got our first brand new tractor was a flat cab FICO cab 6600, which was my first tractor when I joined. That's in the back of the shed. That's due for restoration. The 7000 is obviously a classic. I always wanted my dad to buy one. Bought one, drove it. Biggest disappointment of my life. Anyway, that's another story. I don't know. There's certain things that people drive. I mean, the TM155, TM165 collect great collectible tractors, aren't they? They're only going to grow. The story is, and this is a laughable thing. I had a pension payout of 50. I had my hair put back on there, and I bought a TM165. So yeah, the hair's still on, and the tractor's increased in value. And I said then that I'd try and keep buying a few. I bought a 155, which I think will go up in value. I am a blue collector. I bought an 820 fence just because we've got fence. I have a 724 that I call mine. That hasn't done many hours. That'll never leave because that'll just go. So it's just trying to find the things that...
So it's not stone cold financially. Oh, there's good John Deere's, there's good Massey's.
A little bit
of heart in it as well.
Yeah, a little bit of emotion in it, the things that I like. There'll be certain ones that I'll buy and collect that will increase in value. I mean, a TM165... I wouldn't know what that's worth now, but it would probably be 40 grand plus because it's really tidy. I paid 14 grand for it. Tractors are going up, for a tractor to increase in value 3 times in 6 years. So it's trying to find the ones that are going to go like that. I'd love a Silver Jubilee 7, 8, 10, but how far up are they going to go value-wise? I think they've reached their... So if you go and buy one at 50 grand now, where's that going to go?
What's your take on that stuff that's mad money? Like, you take your counties are mad money, but your Muir Hills aren't. We saw 7530 recently go up over 100 grand.
Yeah, I don't get that. I think maybe there's... The 7530 would be a collector. I'm not a John Deere man, but you like the 7810, the 7530, things like the 8520, the 8410. They're all making massive money, aren't they? I don't know what makes the values go like that. Maybe it was I suppose that the 155s and the 165s are now like 20 years old, aren't they? So the people that were in their 20s or teens driving them back in the day are now getting a bit of money to make them collectible, aren't they? I am just trying... I guess one of mine's... I'm trying to buy the stuff that I drove and owned previously, which I've now done. And it's trying to find 1 or 2 things that are going to be collectible. So there's 1 or 2, like the TM190s, which were awful tractors in the day. They're just getting a little bit rare and a little bit sought after.
A little bit special.
Yes. The story is my change from blue to green was a TM1. I traded a TM165, one of our TM165s and an 8770 for 2 TM175s. Oh dear. I think that would have been another one of my nails in the coffin for contracting as well, running those tractors. Oh my God.
2 TMs and a FX?
Yes.
What a dream.
It was so bad, it's laughable now. Hence why I think I'll have to buy a 175 to go walk by the shed and kick it every day. They just got it wrong, didn't they? Really wrong. I think it nearly finished New Holland back in the day.
Is there any tractor that you are very, very keen to get your hands on to add to the collection, but you just, for whatever reason, can't find one, or
You're not into any oddball stuff, like?
No, I'm not. We had a few oddballs growing up. We had a forward control county in bits and pieces. Awful thing. Like, should have kept it, hated the thing. Hated it, and I've no love for counties in any way, shape or form. No, I'd like to say that I think I've ticked every box at the moment without going into too many details.
Do you eyeball everything you buy?
No.
Do you eyeball any of them before you buy them?
Some of them, just about just about I've bought tractors out of the south. So there's a little bit of a story. Long story with the 8050, right? Alice. So we're on the group chat about the tractor pulling, and Alistair's going on about the Cummins engine in the 8050, and I know quite a few guys in the south, and I ended up. An 8050 came up at the right money down in Cork. It just so happens it was a weekend of one of the storms, so I couldn't get over on the bottom boat. So I ended up going up to Holyhead to look like the worst. I don't get seasick, but I was watching that horizon the whole time over. So I drive all the way from into Dublin, all the way down to Cork. I get into the pub, and there's Conor McCarthy from McCarthy's, Sean Collins, and a few others. I know Sean, but didn't know her. God, what a night that. I turned up to the tractor the next morning, and I was not in a good way, and I went, yeah, I'll have it. And I didn't see that tractor for 8 months till it turned up, rev it up for me to drive it. So I'd bought the tractor and I was in so hungover the next day, I can't really remember anything about it. I love collecting the tractors, but there is something of value. You know, if you have money in the bank, what's it earning you? If I'm honest, I need to start writing down what tractors I actually own and where they are, just in case I had my half a day out with the undertaker. Holly and I had this conversation. When we were out for dinner the other night, I said, this is going to sound really odd, but I think I need to give you a list of what tractors I own and where they actually are, just in case.
You don't know where all your tractors are?
Well, I have to think about it. Yeah. I sell it to Holly like this, that if I drop dead tomorrow, she's got a very good legacy there that she can go and sell one by one and go on holiday as much as she wants, you know.
Thank you so much for your time, Adrian.
Oh, thank you both.
Really enjoyed chatting with you, and we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, there'll be more stories, I'm sure.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. No, it's great.
And we'll see you on the pull.
Oh, you will. Yeah, in full force.